Hello, welcome to episode 22 of 365 in year 2024. Today I'm going to be answering a question that I am asked so often that I have lost count. If I had $1 for every time I've been asked this question, I will probably be a millionaire. And it's always around how did you get into tech, or how did you get into UX, how did you get your first UX research job, and so in today's podcast, I'm going to answer it in very great detail. So if you're interested in that, stick around. I've told the short version of this story so many times, so I'm just going to go into the long version, which is the version that people really want to know. And this story starts all the way back in 2008 or 2009, and it's when I opened my Twitter account and started my blog. I was quite active on Twitter then and posting a lot, meeting people through my blog and my Twitter account, other Nigerians, other people who had WordPress blogs, young people like me, some significantly older than me, but and then I met this particular friend because then I was also interested in photography. And then I met this friend. His name is Olabinjo, and he's now a digital marketer, product marketing manager, and then he was also doing like a lot of writing, and he had a tech blog, and so we connected on Twitter because of our shared interest in photography. And I started working. I actually did like a whole year where I worked in a photography studio professionally. Like I was taking pictures for people for their visa interviews and for like birthday pictures at the studio. So that's the fun thing that I did for like a year in my fake gap year. I call it was an actual gap year. I don't know why I keep calling it a fake gap year, but that's by the way. Anyway, so Binjo and I started working a lot together, starting from the photography studio, and I was writing God knows what on my WordPress. And then when I got into university, Binjo was starting a digital marketing agency, and he hired me to write for the agency. Before that time, I was already doing social media management for a company called 360 Nobs, which was in media and entertainment. And so that was actually how I started working with startups through Binjo's digital marketing agency, then called Upnepa Social. By this time, we were in 2014, 2013, 2014. So this is like some 5, 6 years later. And by then, we had obviously become very good friends, and I was working with the Upnepa Social Agency, creating content, so writing, creating tweets, social media posts, text for advertisements that we'll do, Facebook ads, different social media ads, newsletters, blogs, and we had so many startup customers. I wrote ads for so many things. I wrote content for like so many things for that. Basically anything that was written, I would write for those clients. And I did that while also working at 360 Nobs for about 2 years, if I have my timeline correctly. And then in that time, I also started going to this place called Co-Creation Hub because it was really close to my school. My school was in Yaba, which is where Co-Creation Hub, Yaba, Lagos, Nigeria. And Co-Creation Hub had so many startups. They had an incubator, an accelerator. They had a community for people who were like tech interested, tech curious, and they had lots of meetups. And I was in the University of Lagos, really close to CC Hub. I would go there to meet Minjo sometimes when we had meetings, and meet people. And I just started going there more often because they always had meetups. I would go to every single kind of meetup you could think of. Things I had no I had no reason to be there, but I had the time and I was curious and it was interesting. So I kept going. And I remember I went to a meetup for women entrepreneurs. I was not an entrepreneur at the time. I was in my first year of university, not building any startup or anything, just writing copy for startups for various reasons, for various use cases. And then I was at that meetup and I spoke to a lady called Stephanie Obi. She currently teaches like how to create your own course and monetize your knowledge basically. And I got talking with her, told her I was studying psychology at the University of Lagos, and then she introduced me to somebody at CC Hub called Kene. Kene was the UX lead at the time. I think he was the only UX person technically at that time at CC Hub. And and then he told me about this their meetup called Usable UX Lagos at the time, and I started going for it. I had no interest in working in UX at that time. I was on my path to psychology PhD, but I just went because it was fun and I had nothing else to do besides my work at school, and I still had so much free time. So I was going to UX Lagos, meeting people, attending the meetups, learning, just asking questions, being curious, engaging in the community. At some point, I started helping to organize the events, bring welcome people into the space, take attendance, those kinds of things. It's just the kind of thing I like to do, just like be helpful in general. And that leads us to the next part of the story. Before we continue, let's recap. I meet a friend on the internet. We work together doing photography work. Then we start working together on his digital marketing agency, and I'm writing copy for startups for various purposes. Working with him leads me to CC Hub, which leads me to UX Lagos, which Kenne runs and is in charge of. And fast forward to like 2016, right before the start of my final year, Kenne reaches out to me to say CC Hub wants to hire a UX researcher. Am I interested? At that point, to be honest, I had never considered like a career as a UX researcher. I was just going again. It was interesting. I was learning. It was fun, but I didn't picture myself in that UX researcher position. And I had been very active in the community. I was helping out so much that my birthday one year, I can't remember what year it was, they actually got me a cake as a surprise because my birthday fell on the day of the meetup or the day before, the day after. I can't remember anymore. But I got a cake. It was such a nice surprise. And that's how active I was in the community. So I was about to start my final year, and at that time I had left like almost all the jobs I was doing. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, this sounds interesting. I would definitely like to try for it. And so I had an interview at CC Hub with Bosun Tijani, who is the founder of CC Hub and now the Minister of Science Telecom. She's a minister now in Nigeria. So I had my interview. It did not go great. I was very nervous. I hadn't had a proper interview. That was my first proper interview, and I had been working for like 3 or 4 years at that time already. So for some reason they overlooked my terrible interview and decided to give me a chance. Anyways, and I remember I started on November 7th, 2016, and that's where I met my best friend early. Funny enough, we had our interview on the same day as well. He was the UX designer that they were hiring, and I was the UX researcher, and we became best friends from work, and that was pretty much my journey into UX research. I learned the technicalities and the core of UX research on the job, and through Slack communities focused on UX people, I made connections through the Slack communities, people who I still keep in touch with till today, over 7 years later. And yeah, like it has been a great journey. I've gotten to work with really exciting companies and work on really exciting things. And I think that having CC Hub as the place where I started was really great because I was able to work with many different startups on many different kinds of research projects and really broaden my skill set and apply like what I learned in psychology and what I learned from attending the UX meetups into the work that I was doing there. I also was starting my last year a couple of weeks after my work at CC Hub started, and it was a difficult balance, but I did it anyway. I graduated best. I graduated best in my class, so I didn't do too bad. But yeah, that's my journey into UX, and I can talk more about the rest of my journey up to where I am now in a future episode if you are interested in hearing about that. But yeah, that's the journey. Whenever people ask me about advice of how to get started in UX, how to get their first UX research job or UX design job or UX job, I always say that I didn't when I got my first job, I wasn't looking for a UX research job. It literally fell into my lap, and I took the opportunity because at that time I was thinking, what's the worst that could happen? Like I would do it, maybe I do for only 1 year, the 1 year that I have left in uni, and I go ahead and go and do my PhD that I wanted to do. Or maybe I do it and it works out great. Either ways, I'm earning extra money as a student. The job then was paying me 60,000 naira. I can't remember what the exchange rate was for it at that time. So I did a Google search just now, and a dollar was about 300 naira then. And so that was like $200 a month that I was earning. As a student, that was really great. So yeah, I did it and it worked out. And I've been doing this now for over 7 years. And I have worked with amazing and exciting companies doing things that I really enjoy and just growing as a person and in my career. And the one thing that I would say though in advice to anyone who is wondering how can I get started in whatever field, fill in the blank, is to put yourself out there and also take the opportunities that you find. They may not be the ideal thing or the thing that you're looking for necessarily, but it's a good way to test out what you want to do or if you really want to do the thing. So people often say, "Oh, do I start as a UX researcher or a UX designer or a UX writer?" If you're interested in all three, apply to all the three like roles that you see in all those three categories and take the first one that you see. And a good way, another thing that does for you is if you get a UX design offer first, for example, and you're hesitant to accept it, given that everything else about it is great, but it's just because it's UX design, then maybe that tells you that you don't really want to do UX design. So either ways, put yourself out there, throw your eggs multiple, well, not throw your eggs, not throw your eggs, you'll break. Put your eggs in multiple baskets, not too many baskets, like don't put your egg in like 10 baskets, choose like 3, 4, 5 baskets and put your eggs in there and see what hatches first and take it from there. If you don't like what hatches first, wait for the next one. Take good advantage of where you are at that time and keep going from there. And good luck in the journey, good luck in the search. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of A Couple of Things. If you enjoyed this episode or found any part of it insightful, don't forget to share with your friends on your social media and be sure to leave a comment or a review if you can on your podcast listening app. Thank you.